If you follow OVERDRIVE closely, here's a fun fact. Exactly this time 7 years back, that is the March of 2010, we were reviewing the third generation of the Toyota Prius in Mumbai. And that is when Toyota opened up their order books for the first time for their hybrid cars in India. Unfortunately, not much has changed in these 7 years in terms of the market's outlook towards hybrid cars. But now there's a new Prius. Could it change that? Let's find out. The Prius has been one of the torchbearers for the hybrid cars, and the model that you see here is the fourth generation of that lineage. By now, there are plenty of hybrids out in the global market, and that is probably why this Prius subscribes to a futuristic design theme that helps it stand out from the crowd. It is sharp in the way it looks, despite maintaining a high tailgate that is trademark of the Prius sedans. This shape and all the design elements are dictated by the art of aerodynamics. The taillights are quite outlandish in their size and design, but there's something quite likable about them if you grew up watching the Jetsons. There is quite a bit of glasswork at the back, and apart from the windshield, the rest of it seems like an afterthought. Honestly, it isn't a pretty car, but if you want to announce to the world how much you care about the polar bears, this car will do it like none other. The new Prius is slightly larger on all counts as compared to the third generation Prius, and that gives it better space for cargo as well as the occupants. The seats are better laid out too and have an improved contouring. A revised placement for the car's batteries under the rear bench has also led to a slightly higher hip point, and that aids ingress and egress. The Prius sits on the same wheelbase as the Corolla, and the cabin space is comparable to the executive sedan, though the price point of this car may suggest otherwise. The bright colors add to the perception of space, and the design of the cabin looks quite futuristic. The touchscreen infotainment, which is similar to the unit seen in most other Toyotas, feels a tad old school in comparison and lacks the new age features like satellite navigation and an Android or Apple smartphone interface. The design of the dashboard, it's all quirky and I like it. I like this unusual and funky looking gear selector. You have all these gloss white plastics, you have these satin inserts, you also have this centrally mounted instrumentation, and then you add to it the smoothness of this drivetrain, and this car instantly feels as if it's a concept car that is put onto the road. To me, it comes across as a battery-powered toy car in a 1:1 scale. I'm sure you have heard that before, but that is exactly what the Prius feels like. So much so that the steering wheel actually feels like an afterthought, and you expect some sort of autonomous drivability in here, but there isn't. Power comes from a similar hybrid drivetrain as before, comprising of an electric motor generator mated to the same 1.8-litre petrol engine from the previous Prius. It even uses an older battery technology as compared to some of the new age hybrids, but still manages to claim clean numbers. The new Prius claims to be one of the most fuel-efficient cars in the world that doesn't require plug-in charging. And that claim comes courtesy of an improved hybrid drivetrain and much better aerodynamics from that unusually angular bodywork. All of it comes together to make the new Prius a better performer than before, despite a similar system output. The drivetrain has three modes: normal, eco and power. Normal mode is activated by default on startup, and if there is enough charge in the batteries, it can run on pure electric propulsion for speeds up to 60 km an hour, beyond which the petrol motor kicks in and complements the performance and the charging. Eco mode dulls down the throttle response and air conditioning and extracts the maximum possible juice out of the hybrid drivetrain. Power mode is ideally suited for the open stretches, and the car can reach highway speeds and beyond without much effort. A B mode comes in handy around the twisties, as the drivetrain's coasting capability is replaced by an engine braking function. The low resistance tires, however, aren't the best when it comes to gripping the surface. I'm not sure if that outrageous bodywork is going to help the Prius get any younger customers, but if you are young, you want to go green and you would rather prefer to be behind the wheel than be in the back seat, then probably the Prius makes a little more sense as compared to the Accord or the Camry hybrid. Not that it isn't comfortable at the back, in fact it's decently roomy, and the new double wishbone independent suspension does quite a good job of ironing out the bumps. But with its smaller size, the new Prius feels surprisingly crisp to drive than what its lineage suggests. This Prius is also based on Toyota's new generation architecture, and that gives it lighter components and a lower center of gravity. And the latter actually works because this is a 2-ton car and it doesn't make its weight evident at all. The ride quality is typical Toyota and remains supple over most of the undulations that our roads will throw at it. Fortunately, the softer ride quality does not affect the way the Prius handles quick direction changes, and it feels tauter than the older model. The suspension is surprisingly silent too, and this is where it starts feeling like an expensive car. At the price that it demands, the Prius isn't exactly value for money, especially with the presence of the Camry and the Accord hybrids in that particular price bracket. But what earns this car a few brownie points is its slightly more driver-focused nature, its convenient size for urban use, and more importantly, it still remains one of the strongest statements that you can make to the world about how much you care about its future.